Call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 15th, 2021. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Harlick, will you please call the roll?
Yeah. Commissioner Knoploch?
Here.
Commissioner Heikkila?
Here.
Commissioner Bradley?
Here.
Commissioner Casey?
Here.
Commissioner Schmolke?
Here.
Commissioner Geisler?
Here.
And Chair Schwartz.
Here. Our first order of business this evening is to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Casey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's adopted. Next, we have the minutes from our June 17th meeting.
Chair Schwartz, make a motion to approve, or to adopt, or I should say, which am I doing?
Approve.
Approve, that's what I thought.
There you go.
didn't respond, so I thought I said that wrong.
Yeah, every one of them.
Second.
Motion by Schmolke, second by Heikkila. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the minutes are approved. First order of business is planning case 21-29, preliminary plat for 114XX Robinson Drive, 14 townhome lots and common area, Landform Professional Services. Mr. Harlicker.
Yeah, Chair and Commissioners, this first item is, we've got all three items tonight are kind of in tandem, done in conjunction with each other. This one here is, the first item is a preliminary plat, and following that, there will be a discussion regarding, and consideration regarding a site plan for townhouse development. The preliminary plat involves platting this site here, 2.63 acres into 14-unit site for townhouse development. Robinson Drive is up here, got Martin Street, Wells Fargo Bank, and some single-family homes over here. And then we've got townhouses to the south. This is the preliminary plat. The lots comply with the dimensional and area requirements of the moderate density residential district. We've got 5 lots here, 6 here, and 3 here. Got a large, wide drainage and utility easement here. There's 2 existing easements here and here that will be vacated as part of this process. Park dedication in the amount of $1,360 per unit is required. And staff is recommending that the commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat with a condition that all engineering comments be addressed, the 2 drainage and utility easements be vacated, and park dedication in the amount of $1,360 for 14 lots to be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording. With that, I'll answer any questions, and the applicant is in the audience also.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker? All right. Is anything the petitioner would like to add? Please give your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Joe Bailey with Landform, 105 South 5th Avenue, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just want to thank you for having us here tonight. This is a project you've seen before with the zone change for this property to moderate density residential. With that, we've made some changes to the engineering stuff due to the comments that we received from the city engineer. But overall, the site plan and the building product itself is remaining the same. So if you have any questions, we're here for you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we need a public hearing in this matter, so at this time I will open a public hearing in planning case 21-29, the preliminary plat for 114XX Robinson Drive, 14 townhome lots in common area. Anyone wish to speak at the public hearing? Please give your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chair, Phil Rosar, 10640 Mississippi Boulevard. This particular property has a long history, and what I'm concerned about is the easements that are running into the property currently this was essentially an outlot or a pond for Forest Oak townhomes. Jerry Smith was the original owner on this property when he wouldn't pay for, on the part that doesn't go all the way to Robinson Drive, when he would not pay for the assessments, Jim Stanton from Shamrock moved the road over on Robinson Drive, creating that little wedge of land so he didn't have access. How the land got the access was 115th Avenue used to come through the other part that does go to Robinson Drive, and all of that land went together and formed essentially one lot. The one part was roadway, the other part was a pond. And cards on the table, I looked very hard at buying this piece of property myself. I want staff or everybody to know that. Where I had the problem is I'm also an owner in Forest Oak Townhomes. Forest Oak Townhomes used this as a drainage lot as part of the original plat of Forest Oak Townhomes. So what's happened here is the land changed hands from Jerry Smith to Jim Stanton over the years, and the easement remained on the property, but the purpose of the easement was not clearly stated, I guess, in the abstract, and it just shows it as being an easement, but it goes right through the middle of it. And my opinion is that that easement should be addressed, and the way to address it, and Mr. Harlicker can probably help me a little bit here, but there should be an easement or a pipe put in the ground here and a drainage ditch by pipe going all the way to Robinson Drive, under the street in Robinson Drive, and out to Highway 10, which is where there's a pond existing. That would be the best way to fix this. The way it is now, these townhouses would be subject to flooding from Forest Oak Townhomes because it is essentially a drainage ditch. I know that isn't your job to get into those kinds of engineering things, but under the 60-day rule, which is being used all the time, you have to make a decision tonight. The decision I'd like to see made is it be tabled until such time the engineering is addressed. I don't think Forest Oak Townhomes cares one way or another where their water goes, but they already paid for it once. Why should they have to pay for it again? They paid for it when they originally bought because it was originally platted as that being a drainage ditch. And I found myself in a real quandary buying that land and then also owning in Forest Oaks. So my feelings are that that needs to be addressed before the plat goes through. The plat itself, I think, is intense, but I don't really care one way or another on the plat. I'm not, and it's nothing against the developer. That's the way the land is, and it should be addressed, and it should have been brought up to you people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak public hearing? Mr. Bailey, you can come up and speak if you like.
Joe Bailey with Landform again. I would like to address that. We are, with the drainage and utility easements, we are vacating those. However, we have accounted for the the drainage from the adjacent sites and allowing that to pass through our infiltration basin there, which is shown on the southeast corner of the site. We're accounting for that drainage and not blocking the elevation that it's currently coming onto our site at, and accounting for those volumes and 100-year high water elevations in our design.
Thank you.
If what he's saying is true, where's the water from this development gonna go? If he's saying the water from all of the townhouses behind it, which is, I don't know the number, but it's substantial, it's probably 100. If that water's flowing into there, and he's gonna put it in those two little spots, where's the water from this development, which isn't showing the road here, but the road actually takes up in between the rest of it. There isn't room for water drainage unless you pipe some of this across the street. I'm not an engineer, but I'm no dummy either. I
All
have
right,
platted the
thank you, Mr. Rozar. This is not a back and forth, so, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to public hearing?
Good evening. My name is Darlinda Alexander. I live at 10618 Hollywood Boulevard Northwest in Coon Rapids, and I am here on behalf of Unity North Spiritual Center, which is on the left side of that property. And what I would like to know is how much space will there be between the townhouses and our property line?
What are the setbacks, Mr. Harlicker?
55 feet.
So there's a 55-foot setback to the property line for the townhomes. Anyone else wish to speak at the public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and restrict comments to the commission. Mr. Harlicker, I would suspect that the engineer city engineer has addressed these issues in his report.
Yes, that's something that engineering takes into consideration. They review these grading and stormwater management plans.
Thank you. Commission,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Harlicker, looking at the engineering comments, there's the final bullet on here is install one street light along the cul-de-sac near the parking area. Can you show us where that roughly is going? That's not going on Robinson, is it?
Pardon?
There's a request, one of the engineering comments in here is to install one street light along the cul-de-sac near the parking area. Is that the northern parking
Yeah,
area?
they're probably looking up in here.
Oh, as in a light, as in just not an actual
Street
traffic control?
Correct.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Casey.
So, Mr. Harlicker, might this drainage issue be why there are two infiltration ponds on this property?
I'd have to refer that to the engineer, Commissioner Casey.
Yes, that is one of the reasons that we have quite a substantial area on site accounting for stormwater, both on the west side of the site and the east side of the site, because of all of the off-site drainage that is coming through this site. And in addition, there is an overflow outlet from the east pond that will go provide a connection into the city's storm sewer within Robinson Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commission, any other thoughts, comments? On the preliminary plat.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schmolke.
I'll make a motion in planning case 21-9. The planning commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat with following conditions: that all engineering comments be addressed, the two drainage and utility easements that across the center of the lot must be vacated, and park dedication in the amount of $19,040, which is 1,360 times 14 lots, be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording.
Second.
Motion by Schmolke, second by Geisler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and will be heard by the City Council at their August 4th meeting. Next case is Planning Case 21-30, a site plan for the 14-unit townhouse development at 114 XX Robinson Drive. Landform Professional Services. Mr. Harlicker.
Yeah, Chair and Commissioners, here is the site plan. You've got a Street A private road that comes in off of Robinson Drive with units kind of wrapped around the cul-de-sac. All the units meet the setback requirements of the MDR zoning district. They all meet the parking requirements, 2 spaces in the garage, 2 spaces in the driveway, as well as the community spaces located here and here. Does meet the open space requirements. We've got an open area here and open area here. I think it amounts to about 9,000, square feet. And there will be a children's play area located right in here as part of this project also. Park dedication in the amount of $1,360 per unit, same as what was referenced in the preliminary plat will be required. Looking at the grading plan, the applicant addressed this briefly during the discussion on the preliminary plat. They've got a stormwater management area here as well as over here in order to accommodate runoff from both the development on this site and stormwater that runs through the site. This is the landscape plan. Most of the trees on the site will be removed because all the grading that's required to develop the site. It does meet the landscaping requirements per the landscape standards, except for the number of ornamental trees. Code requires 47, and they are providing 7, so they're short 40 ornamental trees. One of the issues that weighs on that is the amount of area on the site that is being used to accommodate stormwater management. Even though those areas are open, they aren't eligible for planting of any type of tree in there. As you can see from the plan, the site is well landscaped with respect to overstory trees, evergreens, and shrubs. They meet or exceed the landscaping standards. Across this site here, they've got a mix of evergreens, spruce, cedar, and arborvitae planted along here to provide a screen to the townhouses that are located to the south. So this area will have the evergreen screening along it, and then they'll also be wrapped around this property line here, all along through here. All landscaped areas, including the areas between the driveways, which shows up in the green stripes here, will be required to be irrigated. These are the proposed building facades. The applicant did bring material samples if the commission would like to look at them. You can tell it does have a variety of shapes in the roof line, bump outs and recesses across the front to give the front of the building a nice break. These are the line drawings up here, and these are added because the real elevations are flat and kind of uninteresting. So staff is recommending to add interest to the rear elevations. They've got the screen walls and then do a pergola type feature over the sliding glass doors and do some shutters on the windows to match what they got on the front to tie the two elevations together. With that, staff is recommending approval of the site plan for the 14-unit townhouse development with the conditions that all engineering comments be addressed, compliance with Title 11, all landscape areas be irrigated, including the areas between the driveways, homeowners association agreement be approved by the city attorney, the applicant enter into a site security agreement with the city. In here, we talked about adding additional ornamental trees. That is a condition. However, given the limited space to add those trees, staff would recommend that those additional trees be waived. Pergolas be included over the patios and shutters on the upper story windows on the rear elevations. And then the park dedication at $1,360 per unit. With that, I'll answer any questions, and we've got the building materials if you'd like to look at those.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. So you're suggesting we delete condition 6 altogether?
Yes, Chair.
Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker at this time?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bradley?
Mr. Harlicker, are you going to, do you think the city's going to ask for any additional ornamentals, or they just want to, should we have it as a unnumbered requirement, so it's not 40, but to, if you need to add more or not?
Yeah, Commissioner Bradley, staff is recommending that the landscape plan be approved as presented.
As presented? Okay. Thank you.
All right, we do need a public hearing in this matter, so at this time I will open a public hearing in planning case 21-30, site plan for the 14-unit townhome development at 114XX Robinson Drive. Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. And Commission, we all in agreement to delete condition 6, the extra trees?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair. That
Commissioner
seems,
Casey?
when I look at the plan, in the lack of space, I began to wonder where are those 40 trees gonna go? So it makes sense to me that we cut back, and if the city's recommending we eliminate it, it's gonna look like an overstuffed plot if we try to shove in more trees, I think. So I'm good with eliminating number 6.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler?
I would agree with that. There's a lot of crown coverage here on the trees that are there. So I think that's fine for removing that. The question that I do have is actually regarding the play area open space. There's a lot of specifically where they've got the play area swing set slide. There are some trees there. It kind of looked like they're in the middle of where some trees are. I'm assuming that since we're planting these trees, that'll be coordinated between where the play area is gonna be denoted and there's enough space for people to actually be and not have a tree trunk in the middle of their swing set?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey?
I had one other issue here, sorry. One of the other conditions. Oh, I had a question, Mr. Harlicker, could you put up the elevations, the building elevations? That's the front. And then this bottom row here is showing is the back, right? Tell me again, or maybe the petitioner wants to add on, what's going to be at the top along the back? You mentioned something to make it a little more interesting, other than just the sliding doors and the two windows? Was there going to be different materials or different elevation attached to that? Did I misunderstand?
Commissioner Casey, no. There is some break in the roof line here. And then to add some interest up above, do shutters to match the shutters on the front elevations. And then to do the pergolas over the patios and the sliding glass doors in the rear.
Oh, in the back.
And then there are screens, walls between the units where possible. Maybe we can ask the applicant if there's, the reason they don't have them here is because that's where the utilities are. If there's alternative location for those utility boxes, they could also add a screening wall here to give some separation between these two dwellings.
I see. So just basically the amenities or the shutters, the pergolas, they're just not showing on this, right?
Correct. That's why
Okay.
they were a condition of approval.
Then yeah, I might have missed everything you said, but that, you've clarified it,
Okay.
so. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Bradley? Commissioner Heikla?
Mr. Harlicker, is there some sort of a deck or concrete or something in the rear where the owner could have like a grill or a picnic table, patio table, something
Yeah,
behind?
there'll be shows up, it doesn't show up on any of these. There's a patio on the back and then green space behind that.
How large is that, do you know?
Pardon? 8 by 10.
8 by 10. Okay, and one other question I have. Is there a place in here for people to walk their dogs?
There's not a designated area, no. I assume they can walk them in the common areas surrounding the townhouses. I suppose that would be up to the townhome association as to how they want to regulate.
Okay, they can set their
That's-
regulations as far as,
Yeah, there is not a designated area, no.
I was gonna ask it.
Mr. Fernelius?
Scott, do you have a plan view that shows the units? I think the question that Commissioner Casey was maybe asking about is, what does that rear elevation look like? I think there is some varied, do the units, are they staggered, or is it one straight facade along the back?
Yeah, on these, I'll let the applicant speak to that. It's my understanding that it's flush across the back. They aren't
Okay.
staggering
Okay.
the units across the back. You wanna-
Sorry. We were playing rock, paper, scissors to see who's going to address this one. Todd Olin, I'm with Landform as well, and 105 South 5th Street, Minneapolis. Currently, it is a straight wall across the back. I think all of the ideas that Mr. Harlicker brought up are positives and would add value to, and to the look for the overall elevation. In addition, we're we're the site civil guys, so bear with me, I'm not an architect. But dormers on the back would be a good idea too for the architect to consider, just to break up the roof line a little bit, a little more. If you look at the top front, for example, those dormers, they add character and it's a different material and whatnot. So, you know, in addition to putting some shutters on, which I think would help, separation walls, absolutely, between the units. And then that would give somebody a little bit more privacy between the units from porch to porch. And then, again, they look for straight walls on those back walls anywhere they can for cost's sake, but there certainly are maybe some cantilever issues we could, alternatives we can look for just to bump one out, just to give a little more depth and character. But if it please the commission here, we'd like to put those in the form of recommendations and maybe bring those back for staff review before the final approval of the city council. But I think we can get to a point where the elevations are much more attractive.
To that end, do you have materials that you could show us that might go on front or back, or?
We do. If you'll look at that top elevation, for example, these are the blocks that are gonna be used on the lower portion of the elevation around the garage doors.
You might want to set those just out by your colleague there, just so that we can see them. They're buried.
Can you see it better here?
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And then siding will be this material here, which is the final product. Bear with me here. Put this on display. And then the dormers that come out toward you when you're looking at the front of the building will be this material. And the triangular areas. So it breaks the elevations up really nicely.
Where exactly are the brick or the block? You said by the garage doors. I don't see it.
Mr. Chair, it is, I think if we can zoom in on this picture, it would show it a little bit better. Right, if we can't, but I do have a color photo with me, or a color printed version, if you wanted to look at that. It does show it a little clearer.
Is it the entire first story section up to the roof line?
Nearly all of it. I'm not sure if it's on the recessed areas next to the doors, but it's on the front area closest to the road.
Can I see some drawings?
On both sides of the garage, correct. You wanna take a look at this?
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Commissioner Geisler.
To Mr. Fernandez's question, it looks like all of these items are, at least the 1 through 6 and the 1 through 3 units are right on the setback, so at least based on their site plan, the backs of the homes are right on their 25 and 55-foot setbacks. So I don't know if rear staggering is much of an option there. The 1 through 5 on the input street does look like it has a little more flexibility there, which may not be a bad idea to consider as well. As to the rear elevations, you've kind of provided two colors. One is the white and one is the red brick. Are both going to be present? Is there a third, or is there just going to be one throughout the site?
Well, I think on the rear elevations, what you're gonna see is more of the siding.
Excuse me, on the front elevation, you've got a red brick with red and then a white brick with white. Both pictures were submitted to us.
I believe there's two colors that they're gonna do, interchange them through the front elevation. That's my understanding. But I don't think these final colors are exact at this point. I know the stone that's here is what they're going to use. As far as the actual shade and how the siding comes out, it always seems to be a little bit different shade than what we show from a sample board to the actual, but it'll be close. It'll be very close.
Right, but the rendered building elevations presented, one's white and one's red. Setting aside the specific variations on our packet and what those print-offs have there of two different total color palettes.
Do you know what color or what?
Yeah, Chair and Commissioners, when we did the staff report and the PowerPoint presentation, they were looking at two different options, the one on the top and the one on the bottom. After today, the builder stopped by and dropped off the material samples, and they decided on the color scheme that we're looking at now.
The cream and blue kind of, okay. All right, thank you.
Sorry, I
That
didn't understand it.
that clarifies that, thank you.
And then I have a question up back to the rear elevations. Above the actual roof part of the rear elevation, I mean, everything here is just shown as block white.
Mr. Chair, that's a shingled roof. And what I was suggesting is that maybe we put a dormer character on maybe every other unit just to break that up a little bit. Give it another architectural feature similar to what you see on the front. So it would break the roof line up a bit. And then between pergola, shutters, and whatnot on the back, I believe those architectural features will really help the elevation there too.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heikla?
is the rear portion of the building, that's going to be different colors as well, each section?
I believe that's going to be a consistent color across.
One color?
I believe so, yes. Yeah. And then, I apologize that the builder who is putting all the selections for color and materials together was planning on being here and had a family issue and couldn't be here, so I apologize for his absence. So he stopped by Mr. Harper's office earlier, dropped these off just to have that conversation because he couldn't be here tonight. But there may be an opportunity with the one area that we're right up against the setback to maybe push the building in a foot just to give it even a little bit of the opportunity to bump out a foot on every other unit. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if you get a foot, you get a little bit of a shadow and a little bit of an undulation in the building. It does break it up. It does help. So I think with all those options, we can make a really attractive elevation in the back.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler?
Looking at the full building plan, which is in our packet, which page is this, A3, I think? Yes, A3, it does look like there is a 2-foot offset which we see there in the center of the middle two units are pushed back. I'm gonna go with 4 feet, without a ruler here, maybe 2. But they're clearly set back a little ways, physically speaking, which you can see on the front elevation of them inset a little bit. So
And that'll be reflected on the back.
on the rear. So there is a little bit of depth on the
Already.
6 block. I'd be interested to know what they're doing on the 5 block. I think on the 3 block, it's probably pretty hard to add a little depth character on that. But on a 6 block, it's showing those center 2 is set back about 4-ish feet.
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner Knobloch?
I have 2 questions for Mr. Harlicker. On the required findings, I just want to get a clarification. It says common open space 700 square feet per unit, 9,800 square feet, and then the staff comments is no. The applicant is providing 13,000 square feet. You're providing more than's required is according to this.
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify that.
They are.
They are,
Yep.
okay. And then the last thing is, I'm a little concerned about the removal of the ornamental trees. Is there, with all the issues with previous meetings, with neighbors, with the grading, the elevation, the infiltration, I think it's been addressed relatively well, but I would like to see some action if the overstory trees are being removed, as much as possible, that additional smaller trees, or, because this, I went by this area a couple times and the elevation is all over the place. It's very wooded. I'm just wondering, it's gonna really change the surrounding area a lot. So I'd like to see the possibility, is it an option to have instead of overstory trees, of maybe having a few more shrubs or something that might be conducive to the heavy infiltration basins, or some natural cattails or whatever, something environmentally that could help accommodate all the changes that may take place to this extremely wooded area beside a bunch of other neighbors.
So if I understand your comment correctly, you'd like to see some of the overstory trees removed and replaced with ornamentals, multiple ornamental trees?
Well, the requirement said that 40 ornamental trees are short. So if we're eliminating that option as a requirement, what about 40 shrubs or smaller options rather than ornamental trees? Is that viable? Is that something worthy of consideration?
I think that would be an option we could look at. You could do some shrubs around the perimeter of the ponding areas.
I'm just asking if it's feasible because of all of the complex site plan and all the effort that's been put into the 2 irrigation basins, and I understand that causes limitations and space, but I'm just asking the question, is it a potential option to have non-overstory trees than maybe smaller trees, like you just said, shrubs?
Yes, it has potential.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps that's something we could leave to the discretion of staff as they're working with petitioners. All right. Anything else from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Eichel.
this playground area where it says swing set and slide, is that like a fenced area, and is that the only thing that's going to be in there is a swing set and a slide?
I believe
Is it-
what
is
they've
it-
got shown there was strictly for a representative of a playground area. They haven't decided yet as to specifically what sort of playground equipment is going to go in there. Generally, they have some sort of multi-use, climbing facility with slides and things built on it, maybe some swings.
And then that trash bin that's there, that is for the bank that's behind?
Pardon?
The trash, there's a little square that says trash, that is for First Bank that's next to it, right here? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for the bank behind,
Yeah.
that's correct. Okay, and there's no, like the kids can't get access or get to that from their play area, or can they? I suppose they could if they were.
There's no
monkey
fence
climbers.
proposed along this property line.
There's no fence.
Trash enclosure at the bank would be in an enclosed.
Responsible. Yeah.
And then trash pickup from the 14 units is gonna be.
Trash containers.
Yeah, just like we have in any residential home, okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add a clarification. So there was a discussion about condition number 6 related to a specific number of ornamental trees, which I believe we've deleted. But now there's concern about potentially adding something. So I'm wondering if we want to modify condition number 6 so that it gives us some leverage. I think if it's removed, I don't know what leverage we would have to say, we'll work with you, but I think there'd be more leverage if we had a modified language as opposed to just simply deleting it. So,
Yeah. Could add some language, if there's specific places you'd like to see landscaping added, and are you looking for, some,
Mr.
I
Chair,
wouldn't call it wetland tolerant, but drainage pond tolerant shrubs, like dogwoods or something like that, as opposed to ornamental trees. I see a head nod up and down.
Yes. Builder's choice, I guess, but something, if the ornamental trees and if that's not gonna be feasible, then the next size down or two below, that will accommodate the site. So if shrubs be suitable, so be it, but ideally, we'd like to have, of course, the initial ornamental trees, but if that's not feasible, what is the next best alternative that would work with the site? That's all I'm saying.
You know, and the landscaping world, it's, the next, I don't know, grade of landscaping would be the larger shrubs like dogwoods, lilacs, things like that.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schmolke?
if you go that route, whose responsibility then will it be to maintain those? Shrubs tend to need trimming, grooming, right, et cetera, so that it doesn't just become overgrown. That can really take a lot of work too.
Yep.
So whose
Commissioner
responsibility?
Schmalke, it would be
would
the
that
homeowners association.
The homeowner association, okay, it would, okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler?
So, Mr. Fernandez, are you thinking something along the lines of additional landscaping be provided in lieu of the ornamental tree requirement? Some level of flexibility that allows staff to seek additional landscaping from the builder, but not so narrow?
Commissioner Geisler, yes, correct. Something to that effect. If we can include that, I think that would be adequate for our purposes.
I think we've discussed a lot of options, and I think they're probably planning right now.
Chair Schwartz, I propose we change the ornamental trees wording to shrubbery or greenery landscaping, something to that effect, so it's open-ended.
All right,
I propose we take out the 40 too, the number of 40. I don't think that's critical if we're going to allow flexibility. So who wants to word that?
Chair Schwartz,
Commissioner Knobloch?
maybe I have a question for Mr. Hardlicker that will clarify that question by Commissioner Casey. The number 40, could you clarify for everyone how you derived based on that number, that requirement?
That's based on the amount of open space. There's so
Okay.
many evergreens, so many ornamental trees per square foot. And that's
Okay.
where that number is derived from.
So, a ornamental tree would most likely, in square footage, would take up more space than perhaps a shrub or a greenery or something smaller, right?
Not necessarily.
No?
It gets bigger shrubs, it covers more of an area. With an ornamental, it's just
That is true.
the trunk.
Thank you.
So does anyone have a wording of,
I would, I'll pitch this as a conversation point. Additional landscaping be provided such as shrubs, ornamental trees, or similar plants be incorporated into the site.
works for me.
Second.
Commissioner Knobloch, is that satisfactory?
It's very vague, but it's acceptable.
So, Mr. Chair, the one thing I think, it implies, though, that there is a requirement that they need to add these additional shrubs and so forth. So I think the question is still, is that what we're saying, is that we're requiring them to find space for additional shrubs? Or are we just saying that we are asking them to work with staff to be able to provide additional shrubs, based on what would be appropriate, or what, I know appropriate is a vague word, I'm not sure what the correct word would be, but.
I think we need to introduce flexibility into that wording.
Right.
So that there's,
Possibly precede what Commissioner Geisler stated with work with staff to
Yeah.
provide.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Bradley?
My suggestion was as required by city staff. And
Yeah.
let the staff manage it.
Perfect. I like that.
So do we have some final language? I've got so far,
Yeah,
work
thanks.
with staff to provide additional shrubs and ornamental trees.
As, what was the tail end of that?
Well, as required by
As
city staff.
required by.
As required by city staff, provide additional landscaping such as shrubs, ornamental trees, or similar plants into the site.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, anything else? Do we need to add a condition for the dormers on the rear elevation?
Mr. Chair, actually, a question to the applicant on this one. Right now, the current item says pergolas be included and shutters be included. Should we expand that for you to allow additional options of interest to be added to the rear elevation, such as dormers? That additional items of interest be added to the rear elevation, such as pergolas and patios?
That's, Mr. Commissioner, that's what I had in mind, is that those alternatives be incorporated, again, with city staff approval, or, and I apologize for the mistake that I thought that one building was flat on the back, but it is staggered. But, yeah, again, with maybe these improvements, I think will have a significant impact, positive impact on that elevation with shutters, maybe pergolas, and like you said, dormers, so yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would actually be more interested in opening that comment up a little bit to allow, if they've got a better idea than a pergola, great, let's see it. That's my only concern about leaving it as it stands of just pergolas and shutters. If they want to put dormers on there, if they want to put additional privacy walls, I think that those are great ideas. Suppose they're not technically limited, but.
Well, I believe that the pergolas over the patio doors would be to break up the flat back side. The dormers on the rooftop would be to give some definition to the rooftop. So I would think we would want both mentioned. And I think we would also want to possibly suggest a minimum of one on the 3-building unit and 2 on both the 5 and 6 unit or unit buildings.
You're talking dormers
For the dormers, yes,
to,
to break up the roof line. Yeah, the dormers. Anything else, Commissioner?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heikela?
probably not a real significant thing, but the adding one streetlight along the cul-de-sac near the parking area. And is that going to be over here where it would light the playground area? So if there's kids playing after dark or whatever, it would be lighted to some extent anyway?
No, the intent of the street light is to provide illumination on the street, not to light up the playground. There probably will be some overflow of the lighting onto the playground, but it's not the intention to have that playground illuminated for nighttime use.
I don't believe we normally light.
No, I'm just kind of wondering if it's going to be over there. It could serve two purposes.
I believe the way Mr. Harlicker described it, the light would actually be on the east side of the common parking, and the playground is on the west side of the common parking. Is that correct, Mr. Harlicker?
I believe so, but I have to
Yeah.
defer to the engineering department on the exact placement of the
All right.
light.
As long as there's a light over there, I guess that's the important thing. All right, anything else, Commissioner? All right, we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Geisler.
I'll move approval in planning case 2130, that we approve the proposed site plan with the following conditions. 1, all engineering comments be addressed. 2, compliance with Title 11. 3, all landscape areas must be irrigated, including areas between driveways. 4, homeowners association agreement must be approved by the city attorney. 5, the applicant must enter into a site security agreement with the city. 6, as required by city staff, additional landscaping be provided such as shrubs and ornamental trees at the site. 7, pergolas be included over patios and shutters on the upper story rear windows be added, as well as 1 dormer on the 3-block house on the rear elevation and 2 dormers on the 5 and 6 block construction units. And 8, park dedication in the amount of $1,360 per unit be paid prior to the issuance of building permits.
I'll second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Smokey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. This is a decision by the planning commission and can be appealed to the city council within 10 days if anyone so chooses. Good luck.
I think the heavy one stays. Yep. You can come pick it up tomorrow if you like, but,
And you've got your drawing up front here as well.
Do you need your drawing, the drawing?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, we're done with it. Thank you. Okay, our next case is planning case 21-31, a preliminary plat to subdivide a parcel into 2 commercial lots, Holly Street and Springbrook Drive, JHM Coon Rapids Properties. Mr. Harlicker.
yes, Chair and Commissioners, again, this is a 2-part application, a preliminary plat and a follow-up site plan. The property is located at the corner of Holly Street and Springbrook Drive with Pleasant Creek. Runs along the property line here. The site is relatively flat. It's been graded. There's an existing driveway that comes in off of Springbrook that services the Quick Trip there. The applicant is proposing to split it into 2 lots. Lot 2, at this point, will stay undeveloped. Lot 1 is where the corresponding site plan for a medical office building will be located. 2 lots, lot 1 will be 1.9 acres, and lot 2 will be 2.82 acres. They've got the corresponding drainage and utility easements along the property lines. Doesn't meet the dimensional requirements of the Port District. There is no minimum lot area requirement, and a lot must be of sufficient size to accommodate the principal structure and required parking, setbacks, and landscape areas. Park dedication will be required as part of this plat. It is currently an outlot at the rate of $5,000 per acre to be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording. Excuse me. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat with the conditions that all engineering comments be addressed and park dedication in the amount of $22,100 be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording. With that, I'll answer any questions, and the applicant is in the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker on the preliminary plat?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Harlicker, will Lot 2 still be considered buildable and functional for the Port District after this split?
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Anything the petitioner would like to add?
Not at this time, no. I think I have something else coming up in the next item.
Thank you.
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner,
I just have a quick question. On the existing gas station, the Quick Trip, right beside where the infiltration basin, has there been any mention brought to engineering or to a planning department? I see a lot of, every time I go by there, which is once or twice every day, I'm always seeing truck deliveries right beside that infiltration basin proposed. Has that even been mentioned or brought up? Is there possibility for concern or any issue whatsoever?
Commissioner Knobloch, no, it has not been brought up.
Okay.
And has not been discussed as part of the site plan discussion for the proposed medical office building.
Okay. Just want to make sure it was brought up in case there was,
I can probably address that question quickly.
that'd be wonderful.
up to the microphone, please,
I'm
for,
sorry.
and give your name and address for the secretary.
Yes, my name is Steve Poindexter. My address is 11293 Hastings Street Northeast, Blaine. I'm with the developer. The trucks you're referring to, we've seen there, though that will no longer be allowed. We're just allowing that to happen. The property owners allow that to happen up until now. That is going to stop. That is not going to continue. Those trucks have been parked there on our land, and we are not going to let that continue with this development coming now.
Good. Thank you very much for updating us on that.
Yep.
All right, at this time, I will open a public hearing in planning case 21-31, the preliminary plat to subdivide a parcel into 2 commercial lots, Holly Street and Springbrook Drive. Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Limit comments to the commission. Commission, thoughts?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of planning case 2131, the approval of the preliminary plat with following conditions. All engineering comments be addressed. Park dedication in the amount of $22,100 be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording.
Second, and I have just a point of order here. There's another, item number 6 on our agenda is planning case 2131 also. That's a misnomer, because that's what we're dealing with right now.
There's 2 2132s.
And there's 2 2132s as well.
Well, they're separate applications.
Yes, but they're numbered the
Require
same.
separate actions and discussions.
Oh, okay.
But the other case,
The 32.
case 6, 2131 is a totally different project.
Do you see it's PC
6
2131?
is part of the Gateway Drive.
6 and 3 are the same planning commission numbers.
As are 5 and 7.
And 5 and 7.
The
5 and
reference
7 are
number.
both gateways, so
5 and
that's
7 are
possible,
related,
but-
yeah. It's just a
It's the
misnomer.
the reference numbers are
Yeah,
incorrect.
are wrong, but I second your motion to approve the preliminary plat in planning case 2131.
We have a motion by Geisler, seconded by Casey. Any further discussion on the preliminary plat? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and decision by the City Council at their August 4th meeting. Mr. Harlicker, before we continue, is it possible that we need to resolve these case numbers so that when we discuss them, that they're recorded properly?
Mr. Chair, Scott, so I think the confusion is that the agenda doesn't match up with individual items. So for example, PC 21-32 is actually PC 21-33. That's the recommendation. So I think there's a sequencing issue. I think that's what Chair Schwartz is asking us to clarify.
Well, we've got our fourth case, which is the site plan here for the medical office building. That's fine, because that's 2128.
Correct.
Yep.
But then we've got case number 5, which is 2132, the PUD amendment, and then the site plan for the dealership are both 2132s.
So, Mr. Chair, let's start with I think what you've referred to as item number 5, which is the PUD.
Correct?
It's shown on the agenda as PC 21-32. If you open up the report, it's actually planning case 21-33. That's the recommendation. Is that the correct sequence, Scott?
Yeah, 32 is the PUD. I don't have the agenda.
Mr. Cornelius, the subject of that is 2132, and that's the typo. The recommendation does reference 33
Right.
on that item. So the subject has the typo in it, the subject line at the very top for the PUD. So you're saying the PUD amendment for Gateway should be 2133?
Well, I think Scott is now saying 21-32.
The content is 33. Agenda,
But when we go to case number 6, that's also 2131,
yeah,
Correct.
3 and 6.
and it's also referenced to 2131 in the recommendation.
Correct. So we've doubled up on
Reference.
more than one planning case.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, as does item 7, which is also PC 21-32.
So we need to know what the numbers are
We do.
for cases 6 and 7.
Yeah, so,
So how about we, Mr. Chair, how about we do this? How about we, since the applicant is here for number 4, how about we address that, and then we can kind of coordinate the sequencing for the other 2 items? Does that make sense? Because I don't think there's an issue with item number 4.
right.
But that's your discretion.
Okay. Yeah, that case number is planning case 2128, so that one's good, Chet. So, all right, our fourth case here this evening is planning case 21-28. The site plan approval for a 12,300 square foot office building, Holly Street and Springbrook Drive, JHM Coon Rapids Properties. Mr. Harlicker.
Yes, this is a request for site plan approval for the office building. Site plan also requires design flexibility for the required floor to area ratio to allow a floor to area ratio of less than 0.6. The proposed 2-story medical office building is located Holly Street and Springbrook Drive, and I would call the southeast corner of the site. It includes 44 parking spaces. They will utilize the existing shared access off of Springbrook Drive and a new access off of Holly Street. The site meets all the setback requirements for building as well as parking. The site is in the River Rapids Overlay District, so there are some enhanced design guidelines that are applied to this application. The site is laid out with landscaped islands on the end of the bank of parking to separate it from the drive aisles. There is a small, kind of a designated loading area on the rear of the building, the west end of the building, excuse me, at this location here. As far as grading and drainage, the site is relatively flat. There will be installing a stormwater management pond right here adjacent to the Quick Trip, and their dumpster enclosure is located back in this corner, the northwest corner of the site by the drainage pond. And looking at the landscaping, it does comply with the landscaping requirements. You've got the trees, overstory trees and shrubs along the street frontage, on the landscaped islands, and around the stormwater pond, with additional shrubs along this property line here, and overstory trees and evergreens along here. To provide some additional screening for the loading area here, additional evergreen trees could be extended down towards Holly Street. This isn't a heavy loading area like you would think of with loading docks or anything. It's just kind of a dedicated space where straight trucks can come in and drop stuff off and then take into the building. Building elevations. Building is a mix of aggregate and brick. And then we've got the glass and they got the brick wainscoting around the bottom. This is the north elevation with a canopy over the main entrance, the brick along the base, windows on the first and second floor, and a larger glass area here over the, to open up the inside of the building. Springbrook Drive, again, it's got the brick halfway up the wall. They've got the windows here. This kind of corresponds to this overhang here, goes out here, is this here. So, excuse me. The entrance kind of wraps around the corner of the building, the appearance of the entrance anyways. With the Springbrook Drive side, there is a requirement that 60% of the area between 3 and 8 feet be glass. That's a requirement of the River Rapids Overlay District. The applicant has been working on that, and because of the way that the interior of the building is laid out, they're not able to meet that requirement. So they're going to have to ask for design flexibility to allow 39.4% glass as opposed to the 60%. For that reason, staff is recommending that the commission open the public hearing, take public comment, discuss the application, and continue it to the August meeting. That will allow staff time to advertise for the design flexibility and the applicant to address that in their application. That's something that came up at the late last week, so there wasn't time to get needed advertising in the paper. This is the south elevation. This is the side that faces Holly Street. Again, you've got windows along the first floor with the stone, canopy over the doors along Holly Street, and the darker brown concrete panels accenting the corner with, again, the overhang wrapping around the corner. And this is the west elevation. It shows the extension of the overhang over the front of the building, as well as windows wrapped around the corner, and a service door with a canopy over top of it here. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission open the public hearing, continue it to the August 19th meeting. And the 60-day review period will be extended out to October 12th to allow time for the August meeting, if that's the direction the commission would like to take. So with that, I'll answer any questions. The applicant is in the audience too, he's already introduced himself, but to answer any questions regarding the site plan.
Mr. Harlicker, the Florida area ratio, is there anything you want to say on that point?
Well, yes, Chair. I think I referenced in the staff point. A 0.6 Florida area ratio would be a 49,500 square foot building, which really cannot be accommodated on this site, along with the required 165 parking stalls. So that's why the applicant is requesting design flexibility, and staff is in support of that request for flexibility.
Thank you. Is there anything else the petitioner would like to add before we continue, sir?
Just one other thing.
Up to the microphone, please.
Yep.
Excuse me. Scott, could you pull up that east elevation again, the one facing Springbrook?
Yep.
Yes, if you look at the east elevation, the three windows at the above the base there, then there's that space. The interior, those are two restrooms there. That's why we really can't put windows there. So we are going to be adding more glass up at the top, and we're, so that, I know that doesn't really help the 3 to 8 foot level, but we want to have as much, I guess, glass as possible, but I just don't know that we can meet that requirement given the short side of the building and given the fact that those are restrooms there from the interior design from the clinic that's going to be there.
All right, thank you. Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker before we have a public hearing?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schmolke?
just as a suggestion with that area, is it possible just to break it up with false windows, right? Something where I don't know if the material would allow for any sort of a breakup, where it could be like just an indented area, something, I don't know, it's just a suggestion, but rather than, if the flat is an issue, just if there was some way to put like a false window or something like that. Just as a
Chair
suggestion.
Schmolke, that is an option. It's not one that's available through the River Rapids Overlay District design.
Okay.
They specifically require
Okay,
windows. There can be some opacity to them, but they do require windows.
thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey?
So, Mr. Harlicker, when we address this again in August, we're going to have design flexibility for the floor to area ratio, and for the 60% glass requirement.
That's correct, Commissioner
So
Casey.
do two of those?
Yep.
Okay. Just to clarify.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler?
Mr. Harlicker, could you expand a little bit of where the Florida area ratio requirement comes from for this district and what's its intent?
That goes back to when they had the initial development of the overlay district. At that time, they were looking at office buildings and then underground parking and a much more intense development than what's currently going in, and it has been, I don't know that they've had a single building yet come in with that level of density on it.
So to increase this number, they would hypothetically add stories or increase their total floor space? Is that what this is?
They would have to do that, and then that would also increase the need for additional parking.
Understood, yeah. So just understanding what this requirement means,
Yep.
though.
We're trying to reach a balance here, and staff believes that the 1 point, I think it's 1.4, is a good balance between the size of the building, stormwater management, and meeting the required open space and parking.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. Harlicker, would putting in opaque glass blocks on that eastern facing, would that meet the glass requirement for the overlay district?
I'd have to double check the standards. It may, but I can't give you a definitive answer right now.
That would be a possibility.
It's a
for
possibility.
Putting in more glass, putting in opaque block glass windows. And that would give a little light into the bathroom areas, but still not
Visible, yeah.
may compromise the integrity of the bathroom areas. Just something for thought for the petitioner.
Mr. Chair.
Cornelius.
For those on the commission that might remember, I thought we did something similar for the self-storage project next to is it the Holiday Station store up off of?
Foley?
Yes. Where those, like the second story, I don't know that there's any glass, but we required an architectural treatment that essentially looked like glass. So I think it is possible. I think it's something we can probably work with the applicant on.
But whether that's gonna meet the River Rapid overlay or not.
Yeah, and that's always a discretionary call, but I think I think we can try and strike a balance.
Thank you. Commission, any other questions for Mr. Harlicker before we have the public hearing? All right, at this time, I will open a public hearing in planning case 21-28. Site plan approval for a 12,300 square foot office building, Holly Street and Springbrook Drive, JHM Coon Rapids Properties. Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, we will continue the public hearing to the August 19th meeting. All right, commission.
All right, that's it.
Chair Shores?
Commissioner Knobloch.
Since you kind of referred to it already, we still need a motion?
No, because we possibly still have some discussion before we go to a motion,
All right.
if you would, sir. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments before we, in essence, continue this to the August meeting?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schmolke.
just to clarify, so the public hearing is also continued
It's
to the next?
continued,
Okay, thank
yes,
you.
it's open.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Buccioni.
It's the body's intent to also extend that 60-day rule.
Looking at the case report, it looks like the city's already extended it.
Okay.
The letter is drafted and it will go out following the meeting.
So, as far as we knew, it was already extended.
That's
But
efficient.
thank you for the eagle eye. Legal eagle eye. All right, if nobody else, any other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Heikela.
Sometimes when I've used that quick trip there, you come out of there and you want to make a left-hand turn. You kind of have a wait to get out of there, and I'm wondering if this parking lot here is gonna make that situation worse. Or are they all gonna circle back and go on to Holly? Even on Holly, you know, getting to make a left-hand turn there is gonna be more difficult.
Yeah, Commissioner Heikela, this driveway was designed to service both lots. So yeah, there may be a wait here. Will cars drive through this parking lot, come over here, and then go back out?
Can you pull that up so I can see what
The air photo?
where you're pointing to, or what you're
Well,
talking about?
this is the,
Yeah,
that's the existing
right.
driveway.
If you go there.
Are
and
you
try to-
suggesting that people would drive through the parking lot, come out here, and then go down Holly Street and wait on Holly Street?
Okay, that's fine too, but then, and that's
I was wondering
fine.
if that's what you were,
Yeah, I'm talking about that, plus I'm talking about getting out of Quick Trip and making a left-hand turn. And then, that's difficult. And then going down to Holly and making a left-hand turn. Or going down to Holly and making a left-hand turn is, sometimes getting out of there is an issue.
yep, there will be times probably when traffic stacks up, waiting to get out onto Springbrook Drive. I would think as a patient at the clinic, if I saw a bunch of cars backed up, I would probably go out here and go this way, as opposed to trying to widen my way to the end of the wait line. But yes, there may be times when traffic does back up on site.
I agree, I would do that too, but sometimes you're already at a certain point where
Yep.
turning around and backing up is not an option.
Correct.
So, Mr. Harlicker, that driveway that you just alluded to there, that's already there for the Quick Trip folks?
Yes, and it was designed to accommodate both properties. It's been its intention since it was installed. That's why there's an easement to allow this here so people can get out past the median and then go down Springbrook.
So then that brings up also a point, quite often along the, I guess it would be northwest edge of that driveway. No, there's a lot of vehicles that also park there, trucks, et cetera. Is that area gonna be posted no parking?
It's a private access. I'd have to talk to our access people. There might be emergency access issues if trucks are parking along there.
Because right now, obviously, lot 2, or lot 1 rather, is a dirt lot, so it's not that big of a deal, but you quite often will see semis or delivery vehicles or whatever parked along that island
Pull
area.
off over here.
Yes,
Well, now they can't do that. That'd be curb and gutter and landscaped and a drainage pond. So that opportunity will be gone.
well, but if it's a habit that they have, unless it's posted, I believe we're gonna have an issue. So I think it's something that needs to be looked into.
Okay.
And Holly Street is already posted, no parking, correct?
I believe it is, but that's a public street, that there's different procedures for doing it on private access drives.
All right, if no one else has any comments? Commissioner Knobloch, I guess it's time for your motion.
No, I can't.
Chair Schwartz, in planning case 21-28, the commission opened the public hearing, discussed the request, and continued the request to the August 19th Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
Motion by Knobloch, second by Heikela. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Case is continued to August 19th meeting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Look forward to what you come back with. All right, now on to our number dilemma.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Fernelius.
I believe we have it figured out. So the next item, item number 5, is planning case 21-32, so that is correct.
32.
21-32, so both the,
Item number 5.
item number 5, yes, the next,
PUD amendment.
the PUD amendment
All right.
is planning case PC 21-32. So the recommendation list is at 21-33, but it's 21-32. And then, item number 6 is planning case 21-33. That would be the next sequence. And then item number 7 would be planning case 21-34. So the next item, there is no issue with that, other than the recommendation needs to reflect PC 21-32.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Bradley.
I move we amend the agenda to reflect the numbering.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Bradley, seconded by Commissioner Knobloch to amend the agenda listing the corrected item numbers and case numbers. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Agenda's been amended. Thank you. All right, then we'll try planning case 21-32, a PUD amendment for Gateway Commerce Center, Gateway Drive, Phillips Architects. Mr. Harlicker.
Yes, Chair and Commissioners, the applicant is proposing a PUD amendment to allow the 10-acre parcel highlighted here to be developed as 3 lots. There is a corresponding preliminary plat proposed to split it up into 3 lots, and a site plan for a car dealership on Lot 1, which is the southeasterly lot, right here. A little history. Back in September 2017, Commission and the city approved a car dealership, 43,000 square feet with 762 parking spaces for this entire parcel. Plan was approved. However, Walzer let the site plan approval expire, and that expired in 2019. In 2017, there was another PUD amendment that allowed for the Honda dealership. That was constructed, and this area of the site is now their inventory lot. So what the applicant is proposing to do is to take this 1-acre piece, split it up into 3 lots. They're proposing a car dealership on this lot here, and then future dealerships on Lot 1. And the middle lot, Lot 2, they're looking at the likely plan for that would be the car dealership on the north end would end up taking half of it, and then the Hyundai dealership would end up taking half of it. This is the existing PUD that's in place now with the Honda dealership and the previously approved Walser Nissan dealership here. What is being proposed is a Hyundai dealership here, then the creation of these two lots. These parking stalls were just put in here by the civil engineer so they could determine stormwater management, worst case stormwater management scenario. They're not being proposed, and we've asked that those parking spaces be removed so there's no confusion. And they will do that prior to your recommendation going to City Council. So this is Lot 3, Lot 2, and Lot 1. This is a little more close-up of the concept plan for the dealership with two access points, one here and here, driveway looping around the building, inventory and service parking here and here, customer parking in front, employee parking along this side here, and additional inventory and service parking. The applicant is in the audience tonight to answer questions about the future of lots 3 and 2. Staff is recommending approval of the PUD amendment to allow up to 3 dealerships with a condition number 6 added, that lot 3 and half of lot 2 are reserved for future dealerships. And with that, I'll answer any questions. The Planning Commission should include the 2 findings in the recommendation. Those are required for modifications to approved PUD plans.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commissioner, any questions for Mr. Harlicker?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Harlicker, does the city have any concerns about Lot 2 kind of being a little small for what the planned use is for this area? It seems like we're almost kind of setting ourselves up for an abandoned, unused chunk of land between these 2 dealerships by splitting it into 3 lots instead of 2.
Commissioner Geisler, possibly, yeah. Given the nature of car dealerships, they like to have as much inventory space as they can. There was some discussion, it's not a likely scenario, but it is a possible scenario, where this parcel here, Lot 2, be a separate dealership. Hyundai has a higher end model called the Genesis, and they've been looking at utilizing that lot in kind of partnership with the Hyundai. And then are in discussions with a separate dealership apart from Hyundai manufacturers for Lot 3. So that would leave the option that this lot could be split at some point in the future. It would require coming back through the process again, and they understand that. Should the dealership that lands here ask for additional inventory space, they would use part of Lot 2, and then the other half would go towards meet the needs of the Hyundai inventory. They are asking for some flexibility as far as future uses go. At this point, what originally was approved here was a about a 60,000 square foot dealership. What they actually permitted and what was approved was a 43,000 square foot dealership. So there has been some changes through the years that didn't trigger the need for a PUD amendment, but weren't identical to what was approved as in the concept plan of the PUD. What we're looking at right now really are the uses. We're going from one use and one lot to a minimum of 2 uses and possibly 3 uses, depending on how lot 2 is used.
Any other questions for Mr. Harlicker? Is there anything the petitioner would like to add before we have a public hearing?
Good evening. My name is Steve Fichtel. I'm with Phillips Architects, and I'm here tonight to listen to your comments and hopefully answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
My address is 435 Idaho Avenue North, Golden Valley.
Thank you very much. All right, at this time, we will open a public hearing in planning case 21-32, a PUD amendment for Gateway Commerce Center, Gateway Drive, Phillips Architects. Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Anyone wish to speak to the public hearing? Seeing none, close public hearing and retain comments to just the commission. Mr. Harker, I'll begin by saying this PUD has been amended to all get out,
6 times, I believe.
at least 6 times. And if I recall correctly, quite a few of us on the commission said the last time was the last time. I'm finding real problems with amending this PUD again, especially to 3 lots. Lot 2 at 1.3 acres talks about being possibly a boutique dealership. I can't see how they would put a building on that lot and then have room for their vehicles, much less room for delivery trucks to deliver cars to that lot, since we require them to be off the drive roadway to make their deliveries. At the very least, if we are going to consider this amendment, splitting this lot, the most I can go with is two lots. There's no way I can go with 3 lots. But I'm not sure that I would support even going with 2 lots. Like I say, the last time we had this discussion allowing for the second car dealership, most of us on the commission said that was the last amendment we were going to have for this PUD. So I don't know what the other commissioners think on this issue, but those are my initial thoughts.
Chair Schwartz?
Commissioner Knobloch.
I concur completely with everything you've said. Ideally, I would have liked to have just the one dealership, but I came to the decision that if a viable applicant and a proposal was put in, I could bend for a second quality, a second decent application in this situation, it seems totally haphazard, trying to force a solution into a situation that exists. So I don't see how, in my opinion, I don't see the future of success in trying to force this decision. And the last time was the last time for the PUD amendment for me as well. So I would not approve this in any case how it is as it stands right now.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schmolke.
So I was here too during the time that this was last discussed, and I am a little confused by the request, especially because I'm just not understanding if the expectation, am I recalling this correctly, but lot 2 is potentially where you might just even share it, or you may decide to split it again, so you're going to separate, so why not just do that in this amendment request now? That's my question, because I agree, it just doesn't seem like it's a sizable lot to really do anything with. I'm not clear either on what the intent is of lot 3, since there's no plans for another business specifically, another dealership even. So does that mean, to, I think what some of the other comments are going at, are we gonna see an amendment in the future with regard to lot 3 as well? So it does seem a little bit like we're addressing this almost like on a piece by piece. At the same time, it's entirely your right. I mean, that's, if this is your petition, is to come to us and ask for these amendments, that's perfectly fine. I'm just not clear on what the vision is. I know there was a lot of debate last time around even the fact that this area was turning into, I think it was characterized as a dealership row, which wasn't what our vision was for this area. So I think it's a sensitive piece of property because it is along Highway 10. And it's visible by so much traffic going through that area. So I think I'm just a little concerned at the lack of clarity around this, and I'd prefer to see something more long-term and specific plans with this.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
I would agree to an extent here. I don't think this needs to be 3 lots. It doesn't make a lot of sense in my mind. I think even a boutique dealership is going to have a hard time fitting on 2 or 3 acres, let alone 1. I do agree that this being 2 does make sense. There's been a little bit of a shift in purchasing trends and supply chain trends in having a little less inventory and a little less asphalt. I think that may lend itself to having 2 dealerships here potentially. I think that makes some sense, but I have concerns about either lot 2, again, coming back and being amended and putting into 1 or 3, which we should either do that now, or being just left and unused and kind of abandoned. And that is, I think, the thing we should avoid the most here, of having just this undeveloped acre of land between on dealership row. So I think the 3-lot proposal here doesn't make a lot of sense for where this is in my mind.
Any other thoughts, comments?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heikkila.
I think everybody here can count. If you started counting that side of town to this, you'll count 8 car dealerships. Another one more if you add Main Motors. So this whole strip is going to be car dealerships.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey.
So I think I was around for that discussion, just a rookie, but in 2016 or 2017. And I'll say up front, I have a problem with the planned unit developments, period, in that I don't know how they originate for sure, but they are so rigid and lock you into such a mindset or a plan. And, it was since 2007, there was plans for a hotel and whatnot. At any rate, it would be nice to settle this for once, I guess, and if that two-lot solution is where we want to go. But I think they're more trouble than they're worth in terms of, you know, we have our mindsets about what goes in there and what can't, and that's a problem too. I think we've seen, you know, the 5 years I've been here, I think I've seen plans change and demographics change and business models change. Look at Riverdale with all that parking that sits there. It's all asphalt and I won't go on, but there's other uses. It's gonna evolve too down there. And so, I don't know, I just feel like they're rigid and it would be nice to deal with it once now, again, if we could, and be done.
Chair Schwartz?
Commissioner Knobloch.
I agree and disagree with Commissioner Casey. I can see her viewpoint, and I share part of it as well. The economy has changed. Everything goes in cycles. They're not making any more land. Land will always retain its value. Demand for its use will change over time. So whoever owns this land will find, no matter, it may be short time for us, it may seem very long for us if it's fallow for 2-3 years. As we've seen, this land has been attempted to be developed for quite almost 1.5 decades. There's been attempts. Maybe it's not the time for it's forcing a use on it. I think in contemplating it, our viewpoint, our opinions, our input as commissioners, not to choose what goes in there, but to see what fits with the community and provide support to the council members that here are some reasonable options or considerations. So my summary is I don't think we should rush to push to put a finalization to this, because it will fix itself in due time in the proper way. I don't think we need to force a solution at this point in time. That's just my viewpoint. That's it.
Anyone else? Well, as I said earlier, I can't support this amendment, splitting this to 3 lots. And unless we come up with something else, I'm going to be voting against this amendment.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Geisler.
if I'm going to maybe try to put a little more clear point on why we're concerned about this and see if people agree. You know, the applicant's asking for some design flexibility around Lot 2, and I believe we're basically saying we don't feel that that flexibility is warranted, in that that's too small of a lot to be reasonably, to flex into for design. You know, I think we've all discussed a 10-acre car dealership is a no-brainer. That says it exists today. That's not what we're discussing. We've had a little conversation about somewhere between a 4 and 6 acre car dealership seems reasonable as well from a use flexibility, but we're not comfortable with the middle lot, Lot 2, being presented at the size that it is. That's the item that we're stuck on with this PUD amendment. Does that summarize that?
I think it does. I think that it makes sense, yeah. if we're
Yeah,
gonna-
I would agree with two. I would agree with two.
I agree, that seems to be the sticking point of the deal, is that small lot too.
Just trying to get to, if we're gonna say no, why are we saying no
Exactly.
in a more concrete manner?
Yeah. Thank you for being articulate.
So, Mr. Harlicker, are we to either vote up or down on this, or are there other options?
Well, there are other options, Chair. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Buccione?
I think this body could recommend approval or denial. Those are really the options here.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schmolke?
one moment. Okay. I think as the case stands today in planning case 21, are we on 33?
33.
33, thank you. The commission is denying the the recommendation for approval of the proposed PUD amendment. Look at that.
Is that a motion?
That's my motion, sorry.
We have a,
That was planning case 21-32, correct?
I was told 33, but
No,
you're correct.
33 is
It's
preliminary
sorry.
plat.
32.
It was 33 in here, I was double checking. Yes, it is 32.
So we have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Chair Shorts, can we have a clarification, or can I have a clarification? So are we voting up or down on the recommendation as stated by the Planning Commission, or by the change that we deny it now because it's not as written as it is right now?
I stated it as it's presented that we're denying it. Recommendation is to deny. So it's
It's being presented to split the lot into three,
Three.
and that's what's being denied.
Okay, the reason I asked for clarification is, are we voting up or down as it stands, or we're making a modification to this?
Up or down as it stands.
And remember, we're making a
Okay.
recommendation, this isn't an approval, correct? This is a recommendation,
That's correct.
correct?
Is
I'll
there-
second that.
Motion by Schmolke, second by Geisler, to deny the approval, to deny approval of this proposed PUD amendment. And do we have to give reasoning?
Can I clarify what you just said? You said deny this approval. I think it's, again, a recommendation for the approval. We're denying the recommendation for approval. It's not our
Mr.
decision.
Chair?
It's not our decision tonight, it's just a recommendation.
Yeah, that's.
Correct.
it's
So-
Changing the wording.
Yeah.
Yep, so to the commission, this is a recommendation of denial.
Correct.
The council will have the final authority
Cor-
to make,
yes.
to make a decision.
Thank you.
In which we'll deal with findings of fact and so forth at that
Correct.
point in time. I think that's correct.
That is correct.
So we don't have to give any findings.
Correct.
You do not.
So we have the motion and the second, motion by Schmolke, second by Geisler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion to deny passes 5-2 with Commissioners Bradley and Knobloch opposed. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and decision by the City Council at their August 4th meeting. Our next case, planning case 21-33, preliminary plat to subdivide a 10.14 acre parcel into 3 commercial lots. Gateway Drive, Phillips Architects, Mr. Harlicker.
I've got a question for our attorney. Since the planning commission recommended denial of the PUD, does it follow that the corresponding plat and site plan approval should be denied also?
So legally speaking, no. Common sense wise, that makes a lot of sense, but there needs to be the public hearing conducted as well.
For each item. We'll have to take each item independently.
And for the record, there's nobody here. So, just the applicant here.
No one online.
We're no longer online, are we?
We're not on Zoom, no.
So since there is nobody here for a public hearing, even though I have to open the public hearing, is there anything we need to hear on this case before I was to open the public hearing?
As in Mr. Harlicker's presentation and the applicant's comments and that sort of thing?
Correct.
That would be your call, Mr. Chair Schwartz.
Mr. Harlicker, is there anything you would like to present on this case?
On the preliminary plat, the general layout of the preliminary plat was discussed during the PUD amendment. It's for 3 lots, a 3.34 acre lot, a 1.3 acre lot, and a 4.5 acre lot. The preliminary plat in the recommendation was that it was contingent on the PUD amendment being approved.
All right. At this time, I will open a public hearing in planning case 21-33, the preliminary plat to subdivide 10.14 acre parcel into 3 commercial lots. Anyone here to speak to the public hearing? Seeing none, close the public hearing.
Chair
Commission.
Schwartz. Can I
Commissioner
go?
Schmolke?
Thank you. So I'm gonna move direct in planning case 21-33, that the planning commission recommend denial of the preliminary plat for Gateway Commerce Center 6th edition.
Second.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
I believe we need to give the applicant a chance to address this.
This is public hearing.
You could have spoke at the public hearing. Is there anything you would like to say, sir?
I guess I'd like to repeat some comments that staff made earlier with regard to the small lot that seems to be the point of contention. As was mentioned, Hyundai has a luxury brand they call Genesis, and they were interested in this site as it became what they call an open point at this location. The factory was very interested because we would have the ability to build their boutique showroom that they talked about. Presently, some of the Hyundai dealerships have, it's kind of like a Ford Lincoln thing, they split it up. They can't decide if they're together or separate, but the people that have the Genesis line right now have it in dual, they call it, with their Hyundai dealerships. There's people that would like to see more focus go to that brand, and so they were very interested in Walzer's I think if given the chance today, Walser would build that second building if they get that Genesis. I don't know all the conversations that they've had with the factory since we first started planning this project, except that obviously our proposal today doesn't include a separate Genesis building. The Genesis building was much, much smaller than a standalone dealership would normally be, because they wanted just a showroom to put. They don't have many cars, so it doesn't need to be very big. You'd probably put 3, 4 cars in there at the most. They'd have room for someone to meet with a service customer, but they wouldn't stock parts, and they wouldn't have service bays and a car wash in that building. That'd all be done in the Hyundai dealership. And so that's the reason that this lot was so small. The factory hasn't committed to Walser to have that Genesis line in a separate building, to give them that franchise at this point. And so the Walser property owner wanted some flexibility. They don't want to commit all that land to Hyundai than they feel, if they feel as it's more than what the factory's guide planning requires for a dealership. All the factories have what they call a guide plan, and they look at the units in service in the area, and they look at projected sales. And then based on that, they set up a chart. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and it says we want this much land, this much building, this much parts, the service hoist, number of bays, that kind of thing. You get the idea. They're trying to right-size the facilities so that they don't build too much building or not enough building. And so the site as it's proposed meets their planning guide for what they feel they need at this location or this point for a Hyundai dealership. One of the, just a comment that came, or a thought that came to mind as I listened to some of your discussion about land use. I may be telling you things that you already know, but there's franchise law in the state of Minnesota that has to do with where dealerships can be located, where factories can award franchises. And one of the rules is 10 miles as the crow flies. They can't put them closer together than that. So obviously the existing Hyundai dealers in the Twin Cities, they don't want to see any new points open, because they feel that that's going to create an opportunity for the customer to buy their car somewhere else. The factory, so there's always this little tug of war, and the factory finally comes and says, look, we're going to open a point. And then the law says, well, you can't do it here because it's 7 miles from, as the crow flies across the river to Brooklyn Park, there's a Hyundai or something like that. You get the idea. So that finding land that works for the dealerships when the need arises to build the dealerships, I sense some frustration there on maybe about, we had it approved, it went away, we approved something else, it went away. As you know, at one time they were here and proposed a Nissan dealership, but they've got a Nissan store not far from here. So that covers this territory. And there was a different climate, and Nissan was a different place in the market at the time that they were proposing to put a new store here. Things have changed since then, and you know, as we all know, things change a lot sometimes. And so they feel that this proposal with Hyundai is what they have available right now. They really wanted to have that flexibility to maybe build that boutique for Genesis if they could. If not, I know that they're having discussions with other manufacturers. And there's talk about opening up another point. That's why we've talked about the second dealership at the end of this development at the north end. So, like I said, I know there's ongoing discussions, but obviously we can't predict the future. But I know that Walzer's expanding and they're building and they're growing the company. So that's the only comment, I guess, that I have. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of background and maybe a little clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do have the motion and the second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1 with Commissioner Bradley opposed. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and decision City Council August 4th meeting. All right, our last case, planning case 21-34, a site plan for a car dealership, Gateway Drive, Gateway Commerce Center, Phillips Architects. Mr. Harlicker.
Yes, Commissioners and Chair. Action on this item is a decision by the Planning Commission. It's not a recommendation like the other two items were. And this is the actual consideration of their site plan for the 28,300 square foot new car dealership, 208 parking spaces, located on lot 1 of the proposed PUD amendment. And again, similar to the, excuse me, the preliminary plat, approval of this was contingent on the Planning Commission and City Council recommending approval of the preliminary plat, excuse me, council approval of the preliminary plat and PUD amendment.
Mr. Chair, my recommendation here, if the body, I think what makes most sense is to table this and extend the 60-day rule, pending that decision by the council on the items the group just recommended denial on.
All right, thank you. I would still need to open the public hearing.
It's been noticed. Hasn't it? Has it been noticed? It's
For
been
today?
noticed, yes.
Then yes.
To open the public hearing and continue the public hearing?
Yes.
First, I guess we need to know if the commission is wanting to table the issue or whether they want to vote it up or down. Because that would depend as to how I would handle my public hearing.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
I was inclined, regardless of their decisions previously today, to continue this item just based on conditions 8, 9, 10, and 14 and 15. All items that speak to the design and layout of the site that appear immature or unready for our approval anyway. And that was my initial take on this, that we continue and let the applicant come back with a little sharper pencil on this site plan in the first place. Now that the other items are there, I do think that continuing this makes the most sense, that if the council does approve this, I would hate to have the applicant have to go through all the work to reaffirm all the work that is here. Obviously, if the PUD and the plats all fall through at council, this becomes a moot conversation anyway, and then we can handle it pretty quickly at the next meeting. So I think, I mean, I think there, if there's any other conversation points we want to have about this so the applicant can work on it in the ensuing months, or in the ensuing month, I think that might make some sense. Because there's a lot of conditions on this item. So that's kind of where I'm at on this one, is that continuing makes sense, but for reasons beyond just what we did earlier tonight.
Anyone else? And if I'm not mistaken, we would need to extend the 60-day rule on this as well?
Yes, sir.
Is that just simply a decision we make, or?
We could do it without you telling us to, so. We just have to do it in writing.
All right. Does anyone else have any comments at this time? I will then open a public hearing in planning case 21-34, site plan for a car dealership at Gateway Drive, Gateway Commerce Center. Anyone wish to speak to the public hearing? Seeing none, we will continue the public hearing to the August 19th meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Chair, I move in planning case 2134 that the planning commission table the item to the August 19th meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Schmolke, to continue this case to the August 19th meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Case is continued to the August 19th meeting. Thank you. All right, moving on, other business. Is there anything anyone would like to bring up under other business?
Mr. Chair, just a quick reminder, we do have
A workshop.
a workshop afterwards, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Herker's left the room, so we have no comment from him under other business. No one has anything? Motion to adjourn by someone?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Schmolke, second by Casey, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.